You're listening to the Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you listen to the show, you know that this is a question that I ask myself all the time. What is infecting our population, millions of people? What kind of it's a mental illness is what it is. I call it Trump Derangement Syndrome. I think TDS should be on the new mental diagnosis book. I think TDS is a thing, and I think that is what is infecting our country, infecting our population. I think the media has officially psychologically broken people down. I'm serious. I mean, it's, you could say it, you could say it as hyperbole, you could say it in passing, you could say it just to get some pointers, but I'm honestly saying I think these people have a mental disorder, and it was caused by the media the last 8 years. Listen, folks, you do anything long enough, if you repeat lies long enough, if you spoon feed propaganda to people long enough, eventually it's going to work. I think what we're witnessing right now is the culmination of a 8-year struggle session with millions of citizens. And I think the weaker ones broke. And now they're just out there just hating on Trump. It's like the part in the Hunger Games movie where they brainwash PETA to where when he sees Katniss's face, he was brainwashed to kill her, to assassinate her. And so he would look otherwise normal, but while he was captive, they would show pictures of Katniss Everdeen, and every time they would show a picture, they would torture him. And so they did it for so long that the moment he seen her face, he just went berserk. And so I'm always asking the question, when is TDS going to be an official mental diagnosis? Because I think that the sooner they make TDS a mental diagnosis, and actually I don't think it's TDS, it's actually called Trump Anxiety Syndrome. Yeah. Which is pretty crazy, but I honest to God, I think that's what's happening to our population. And I think this is the culmination of just years and years and years of the media apparatus, which is now the state-run media, the administrative state media, and the Pravda. I think just years and years of listening to Pravda, these people they're broken. And so now you have people that in any other circumstance would be normal and would have reason and rationale until Trump is involved, and then they lose it all. And so I was listening to Charlie Kirk, and he was doing an interview with Alan Dershowitz, and I actually reached out to Alan Dershowitz, but obviously, he didn't respond. So we're not there yet, folks. Once the show gets a little bit bigger, we're going to be able to get some bigger guests on here. I reached out to an attorney as well to kind of explain the whole. You guys remember when I was talking about filing a class action lawsuit against these corrupt district attorneys? Well, I reached out to one of the attorneys, and he responded, and I'm trying to get him on my show so that he can explain it to you guys a little bit better, because he explains it pretty well. And essentially what it is the people would have to have standing in order for a class action lawsuit to take place, and the only way you're going to get standing is if after the election. So after the election, people can sue. This was the problem Donald Trump was running into in the 2020 election, was he tried suing these states for changing their election laws illegally, but the judges and the courts would say, look, you don't have standing because you haven't actually been affected by it yet. And then what's crazier is after the election, he went back to sue again, and then by the time he sued again, they essentially said, you're too late because, the damage has been done, which means How are you just going to disqualify hundreds of thousands of ballots? They're not going to do that. There's not a judge or a court in the world to do that. So this is how essentially they won in these swing states when it came down to illegal ballots, ineligible ballots. Was the Trump team tried suing? Listen, and I'm not making excuses for Trump's legal team. They got caught flat-footed, period. They were not ready for 2020. I don't think any of us were. We had no idea what was going to happen until it all unfolded over the next few days, the 6-7 days or the week that it took to counting. But they were just not ready. But so part of the big problem with a lot of these states is they tried suing, saying, hey, they have these laws that were changed, and they were changed unconstitutionally without using the state legislature, which the Constitution specifically states only the state legislatures can change election laws. Well, the judges said, well, you haven't been affected yet, so you don't have standing. All right? So after the fraud took place, after the ballots were cast, then they said, oh, well, it's too late because we're not just going to disenfranchise thousands of voters. And it's like, okay. So it's like you're screwed either way. You can't sue because you haven't been affected yet. And then after you're affected, they're like, well, there's really no remedy for this because we can't disenfranchise voters. And I think the Democrats and Mark Elias at Perkins Coie knew this, and they knew that there was not a judge or a court in the country that was going to disqualify thousands or even hundreds of thousands of ballots. And I absolutely think that they planned on that happening. All right, so back to Alan Dershowitz. So Alan Dershowitz was doing an interview with Charlie Kirk today, and they were talking about this article that the Federalist made. So you had a couple Republicans come out. Well, they call themselves conservatives. They're not really conservatives. They are the Mike Pences. They are the Chris Christies of the Republican Party. They made an article in The Atlantic. You guys remember when I did an episode about the Democrats were going to use the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to try and remove Donald Trump from the ballot in these blue states before anybody can even vote for him, citing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, essentially saying, oh, because Donald Trump is accused of an insurrection that he's no longer eligible to run for president. Well, I did an episode completely debunking that whole thing because there's been plenty of other legal scholars and law professors and other colleges throughout the country that said absolutely not. There's no way you're going to be able to disqualify and remove a lead candidate from the ballot by just accusation. It's not going to happen. I mean, you would have a collapse of our democracy. But listen, these people want the collapse of democracy. There's no doubt about it, and I think we're all starting to see that unfold right before our eyes. I've been saying this for years. These people want to destroy this country, but I didn't actually, I don't think people actually took it serious. It's like, oh yeah, they may think different than you, but I don't think they really want to destroy the country. I think they like the country. No, folks, these people do not like this country. And when I say they want to fundamentally change the country, they want to fundamentally change the country. They want to change it. And they know the only way they can change it is by destroying it first, because there's no way you're going to be able to change it the legal way. Not as fast as they want it to happen. So anyways, Alan Dershowitz and Charlie Kirk were talking about this situation and about how he thinks these blue states are going to try and remove Donald Trump from the ballot, but it's just not going to work. Also, he mentions the mentality with all these people, even Republicans, that are essentially blinded by hatred, and they are willing to destroy everything that gets in their way of getting Trump. But I think Alan Dershowitz is genuinely concerned about the pillars of our democracy, the pillars of our country, and our election process, the legitimacy and the integrity of our elections. And I never heard Alan Dershowitz talk like this. He's always been a pretty calm, cool, and collective lawyer when it comes to the Constitution, but he's actually concerned. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. It's a little bit long. I think it's extremely important that you hear it because he hits down on some really good points, and who better to hear it from than Professor Alan Dershowitz. So here we go.
Joining us now is Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, thank you for taking time. I want to encourage people to get your book, Get Trump, The Threat to Civil Liberties, Due Process, and Our Constitutional Rule of Law. And honestly, since Donald Trump has come on the scene, people that otherwise were rational have lost their mind. Professor, help me understand how Lawrence Tribe, in good faith, could write an article in The Atlantic saying that Donald Trump should not be allowed on the ballot based on just not a conviction, but just being accused. Professor, help me understand.
Yeah.
Not even being accused. There's no formal accusation process. Tribe and Judge Lutek are in favor of really ending democracy, saying that a secretary of state or a governor from a Democratic state can simply say, I think that Donald Trump committed insurrection, rebellion, etc., and therefore I'm taking him off the ballot.
Crazy.
And they call it self-enforcing. Can you imagine how dumb they think the framers of the 14th Amendment were? That they would allow democracy to end right after fighting the Civil War without even providing a process. There's no process. You want to impeach somebody, you got to get 2/3 of the vote in the Senate. If you want to get a president disabled, 25th Amendment, you got to go through hoops and changes and procedures. But no, Tribe and Lutek say that if you want to prevent the leading candidate who's trying to unseat the incumbent president, all you need is secretaries of state from the opposing party to snap their finger and say, whoops, revolt, insurrection, insubordination.
Crazy.
It's going to be used against Biden as well.
Of
People
course.
are going to come in and say, Biden engaged in treason. He kept the borders open. He gave comfort to the enemy. That's all you need under the 14th Amendment, giving comfort to the enemy. Obviously.
And this is, okay, so exactly. There's a lot more audio here to go through, but I wanted to touch down on that before he moves on. This, I think, is what the people on the left, the bootlickers, the Bolsheviks, the Democrats, the radical leftists, whatever you want to call them, I would actually call them, at this point, fascists, because that's exactly what they're supporting. You don't have to be a genius to see that our fundamental rule of law, our democracy, our Bill of Rights, our rights, due process, all this stuff is in jeopardy right now. These people are taking a sledgehammer to all of it. And the thing is they can't see it. They can't see it because they're prioritizing their hatred for Donald Trump over their love for their country. And so this is why I always say Donald Trump is irrelevant in all of this. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And in fact, I think if you were to remove Donald Trump from the picture, from the narrative, this would never be allowed. The American people, 99.9% of the American people would never allow this if it was towards anybody else. I mean, think about it. You're talking about the erosion of our electoral process, the erosion of due process, the destruction of people's First Amendment right, the right to free speech. You're talking, I mean, go down the list. There is a litany of fundamental laws and rights that these people are willing to violate and destroy, all in the name to get Donald Trump. And they just can't see it. They cannot see it. They are completely blinded by hatred. And so this is why I always say they prioritize their hatred to get Donald Trump over the love for their country. And this is where we have a problem. This is where you're starting to see the real breakdown of our society. Everything that they accuse their opponents of doing, they themselves are doing. And they wrap themselves up in a constitution that they don't like, in a constitution that they want to change, and in a constitution that they think is old and need to scrap it. We're going to be discussing that in a minute. But the thing is, if you really dig deep, you'll actually find that it's the Democrat Party that is actually the enemy of this country, of this republic. You're talking about a party that has been breaking constitutional norms for the last 8 years, consistently breaking constitutional norms. And one of the most ironic things that I've noticed, really, I just thought about it today. I'm like, how is it the Democratic Party, a party that named itself after the democratic process, are actually the ones destroying democracy right in front of our face? So just perfect example, like what we're seeing now. the Democratic Party named themselves the Democratic Party, even though they were just the ones that fought a war for secession. So they clearly, even back in the Civil War, they were the party of the Confederacy. They weren't the Democrat Party yet, but they were the party of the Confederacy shortly after the Civil War. So it just goes to show that these people have been manipulating the language and talking points and phrases for literally over 100 years. And so the party that was fighting for secession from the country named itself the Democratic Party. And even today, 160 years later, 170 years later, whatever it is, the Democratic Party is actually the party that's destroying democracy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and listen to what else Alan has to say.
The 14th Amendment, which includes references to slavery, enslaved people. It includes references to financial aspects of the Civil War, was designed to be applicable to people who fought in the Civil War. You don't need a process for that. They were parading around in Confederate uniforms and proudly establishing clubs, veterans of the Confederacy, daughters of the Confederacy, mothers of the Confederacy. You didn't need a process if you applied the 14th Amendment to people who fought in the process in the Confederacy. But now they want to flash forward 150, 60, 70 years and say, whoops, this was an alternative to impeachment. And remember, too, people forget that. The 14th Amendment doesn't talk about candidates. It doesn't mention running for office. Yeah. It says shall not be a president or a senator. In other words, you can use that while the president is sitting as an alternative to impeachment. It is such a bizarre interpretation. If Ludek or Tribe were in any of my classes, I would suggest to them that they drop out of law school. They're not really have the mind or the emotion to be lawyers, and they should go to either divinity school or public relations school, or maybe become political scientists and advocate rewriting the Constitution. But these are not constitutional scholars. These are constitutional advocates who first come to their conclusions, and then they distort the Constitution to come out their way. Tribe's been doing this for 50 years or more that I've known him. I argued in front of Ludek on the bench. He was not a particularly good judge, I think, but he became famous because he was a conservative judge, Federalist Society. And now, of course, the Get Trump group includes many Republicans, many people from the Federalist Society. Their goal is the same, get Trump. And they don't care about distorting the Constitution, ending democracy. It's just a very great danger, much more dangerous, by the way, than these criminal cases that are going on today in Georgia. Those are dangerous enough. But this idea of denying me the right to vote against Trump for the third time and denying you the right to vote for Trump for the third time, that endangers democracy. That turns us into a banana republic.
Yeah, and they can't even see it. These people, again, these people are so blinded by their hatred for Donald Trump that they cannot see, they are unable to see the damage that they're causing to this country as a whole. And so, in other words, when Donald Trump is long gone, 10, 20, 30 years from now, this place is going to be a freaking disaster from all the damage and fundamental principles and rules of law and laws were destroyed, all in the name to get one man. They are going to be talking about this mentality, this get Trump mentality, for decades, for generations. This is why I screenshot all the radical leftist comments I see on Twitter, because when history rewrites these days, I want to be able to give a list of names of who it was, and I want to show what they were saying at that point in time, because we mustn't let these people just fade away into the shadows of society after this place has burnt down to the ground, or the American people turn it around and get their country back. These people should always be remembered for who they are and what they did to cause all this damage to this country. And Alan Dershowitz is completely right. And anybody that's not completely obsessed with Donald Trump, anybody that's not completely blinded by hatred for one man, can sit there and say, you cannot remove somebody off a ballot before the people can even vote for him. Like, you can't just remove somebody off a ballot just by mere accusation. Do they understand what this country would look like if that was the case? Like they have crossed so many Rubicons in the last 8 years. It's like I don't even know if we're even able to go back where we came from. I mean, this country has changed so much. You're talking about a political party that has fundamentally changed this country into what looks like and is starting to look like a third world banana republic. Mind you, all of it was done in the name of getting Donald Trump or stopping Donald Trump or impeaching Donald Trump. Everything was about Donald Trump. They would have saved themselves so much emotions, so much pain and anger if they just would have allowed Donald Trump to do his job for 4 years, okay, and just let the guy be president. But instead, they decided to just completely run roughshod over our rule of law and over the constitutional norms and took a wrecking ball to everything, The only people breaking constitutional norms is the Democrat Party. It's one constitutional norm after another. I mean, they have literally changed this country forever, and not in a good way. Certainly not the way Obama was talking about, or maybe this is the change he wanted. But it's without a doubt completely obvious that these people hate this country. They hate democracy, and they want to fundamentally change it. And the only way to do that, which is apparently obvious now, which is apparent at this point, is to destroy it. They can only rebuild if they destroy. They cannot change the Constitution through legal means, which means through the democratic process. They know this. This is why they don't run on their ideas. They run on emotions. Because if they were to really come out and tell people what their ideas are for this country, they would lose every single election. But this is why they have to start race wars. They run 100% completely on emotions. They drum up hatred. They drum up fear. They create boogeymans. And then that's how they get elected. And then once they're elected, they do stuff like this. I mean, I have never seen so much damage done to our Constitution in just such a short period of time. You're talking generational damage done to our Constitution, our justice system, our rule of law, our election process, our democracy, all while pointing the finger at their opponents, all while accusing the other side and accusing them of doing exactly what they themselves are doing. So they'll point at Trump and say, look at these fascists. Look at these fascists. They'll point at Trump supporters saying, look at those fascists over there. When in reality, these people are the fascists. These people are the Stalinists. They're the ones bringing this country to a Soviet Union-like state, not Donald Trump. Trust me, we had 4 years of Donald Trump, and this country had the best years it's seen in decades. If you exclude all the radical constitutional norm breaking by the Democrat Party in that 4 years, if they just would have left Donald Trump alone instead of creating all these hoaxes and partisan impeachments, if they would have stopped breaking, if they wouldn't have went completely apoplectic when Donald Trump won, I think he would have won again, for sure. And number two, this country would be in much better shape right now. And the Democrats and Donald Trump would be gone in 2 years and out of their hair forever. But no, these people had to go off the deep end and lose their freaking minds. And now we have a massive portion of the population that have been psychologically and mentally broken because of the media, because of all this, because of all the media, all the propaganda, all the hatred, all the disdain, all the arguing. They have dug themselves a massive, massive hole. And I don't see, honestly, how the Democrat Party gets out of that hole. There's only one thing you can do, and that is to defeat the Democrat Party. Because other than that, these people are not going to stop. They're going to keep going until the whole damn thing is burnt to the ground. So we're going to go ahead and finish Alan Dershowitz. There's a few minutes left here, but it's by far one of the most important parts of the audio. Here, check this out.
Even the conviction, I think, is a super reach. But as you say, it's just a hunch, a vibe, a feel. And I mean, this is not just some sort of random tweet, Professor, that we're having you on. This is Lawrence Tribe, an American legal scholar and university professor from Harvard University. I mean, obviously a colleague, someone you know very well. You're gonna have to help me and the audience understand the psychology of somebody he's not a stupid person. Obviously, he's wicked smart. But how could he get to this and then publish it in the Atlantic?
Because he doesn't care about anything but get Trump. Remember that the day Trump was elected, before he was even sworn in, Tribe began to impeach him, said we have to impeach him. Tribe does not believe in democracy. He believes in results. He believes he wants it his way. And if democracy doesn't work, forget about it. If the Constitution doesn't work, ignore it. He is not a constitutional scholar. He's a constitutional gigolo. He's a man who will do anything in order to help the Democrats remain in power, to help Biden remain in power. Yep. He used to do it because he wanted to be on the Supreme Court. He's too old for that now, but he's become even more zealous and even more unthinking and even more unbalanced in his approaches to this. The idea that you can remove a man who is the leading candidate from the ballot in some states, if the Secretary of State wants to, but not in other states. Imagine what this will do to this election. It will make it an impossible election, and it would turn 2020 into what would look like a perfect election. I really worry for the 2024 election, because if we're not allowed to vote, what are the alternatives to democracy? Does it mean, people going out on the streets? I think we want to turn people to the voting booth and have them decide. That's what the Constitution is all about.
Mobocracy. That is what they want. They want mobocracy. They want to be able to say, listen, folks, these are the same people that they support government censorship. These are the same people that hate the Electoral College. These are the same people that want to change the Constitution. These are the same people that reject the idea that normal, regular Americans can vote for their leader. These people want mob rule. They want mob rule. They want the states, California and New York, that they have complete control over, complete one-party states. They want those states to be able to decide who the president is. These people do not believe in democracy. They think they're smarter than everybody else, and that if everyone just listened to them, then this country would be a much better place. I'm telling you, that's exactly what these people think. But what's even worse now is now they're taking it into their own hands. They're like, you know what? Since Donald Trump may win in the election through the democratic process, we'll just destroy democracy. We'll just remove him from the ballot. Completely disregarding the level of damage they would cause for generations. And not just the damage they would completely destroy our democracy. You wouldn't even be able to have trust in democracy. And look at the damage they're doing to the trust and the trust and transparency to our rule of law, to the justice system. Completely destroyed. We officially have a two-tier justice system in this country where one party, the Democrat Party, doesn't get indicted, doesn't get investigated for nothing, and then completely weaponize the justice system against their political opponents. That's what we're watching right now. And these people have no problem doing that whatsoever. That's exactly how they want to rule. They want to rule by the mob. Look at the protesting at the judges' homes. This is how these people want to rule. They don't want the judge, they don't want the jury deliberating and making a decision. They can't risk one person not finding somebody guilty, then the person gets acquitted. No, they got to make sure they go there and protest outside the courthouse so that it intimidates the jury, intimidates the judge, so that they get their desired outcome. We've seen this with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. If that judge did not have the testicular fortitude that he did, if he didn't have the balls that he did to pretty much shut these people down, that case would have been decided by the mob, by the mob outside of the courthouse. Another perfect example, Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin was found guilty because the jury and the judge were pressured from the mob. That was mob rule, folks. And it's not just the mob on the outside, but you're talking about the media too. The media is part of the mob. So essentially what these people want is mobocracy. They want to scrap democracy and replace it with mobocracy. Why? Because they're the mob. And the mob is very organized, and they know how to do pressure campaigns, and they send the stormtroopers out to put pressure on whoever they need to. Very organized. So this is how these people want to operate. They don't want democracy. They don't trust the people to make the right choice for president. Look, they have complete disdain for Trump supporters. They hate them. They think they're disgusting. Look at what's his name on that text message, the FBI agent, Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok sent that text. That text message is a perfect example of how Democrats think of Trump supporters or anybody that doesn't support the Democrat cause. A smelly Walmart people. That is exactly how Peter Strzok talked to Lisa Page, and that's exactly how all Democrats think about Trump supporters. They think of them as little people. They think of them as smelly people that go and shop at Walmart. They do not trust these people to make the right choice for president. They don't trust democracy. And in fact, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I got an article here that's going to prove it to you. But I want you to listen to the rest of what Alan has to say. He's got a couple minutes left.
The right to make decisions under the law, not to distort the law.
And you detail this in your book, Get Trump. I encourage the audience to look at it. Professor, I said yesterday that this is an attempt by other means to cancel elections as we know it. Is that an overstatement? Is that hyperbole?
It would have been a few weeks ago. Today, when you have the New York Times essentially editorializing against elections and saying, it would be better to have people picked by random rather than have elections. I mean, these are the people today writing for the New York Times. I have a new book coming out in a few months called The New McCarthyism, and the subtitle is The New McCarthyism of the Left is Even More Dangerous Than the Old McCarthyism. Why? Because the new McCarthyism involves young people who are going to be our future leaders, the future editors of the New York Times, the future owners of CNN, the future people in Congress. McCarthyism was old people their careers are at an end. But I'm so worried that this new McCarthyism, which does not believe in democracy, is going to become the new Americanism. And we have to battle it. We have to fight it. We have to be opposed to it, all by lawful and appropriate means. The marketplace of ideas has to stay open. The same people that don't want democracy don't want free speech.
That's exactly.
They don't want due process. They are fascists of the left. And we have to make sure to use that term and to make them understand that they are Stalinists and they are not Democrats. They are not liberals. They like to call themselves liberals. I hate when people on the hard left call themselves liberals. I'm a liberal. I've been a liberal for 70 years. I'm about to hit my 80. To make them understand that they are Stalinists and they are not Democrats. They are not liberals. They like to call themselves liberals. I hate when people on the hard left call themselves liberals. I'm a liberal. I've been a liberal for 70 years. I'm about to hit my 85th birthday. So the time I was 15, I was a liberal. A liberal is tolerant. A liberal accepts different points of view. A liberal wants voting. I have more in common with true conservatives than I do with these crazies on the hard left.
Yep. But again, Alan Dershowitz frickin' nails it. And mind you, folks, this guy just called the Democrat Party fascists and Stalinists. This guy, I've never heard him talk like that about the Democrat Party, ever. He is a Democrat. He votes Democrat. He's voted for Biden. He voted for Hillary. He votes Democrat. This guy is an example of somebody who hasn't lost his mind and is not completely submerged in Trump hate. He's not completely subdued by the hatred of Donald Trump. So he still has reason, and he's still rational about the entire thing. And this guy just came out and called the Democrat Party fascists. Not only did he call them fascists, but he said people need to start calling them fascists. Like, people need to start considering the whole party fascists and Stalinists. Alan Dershowitz calling the Democrat Party Stalinists. You heard him just 3 weeks ago. He said this would have been, 3 weeks ago, I never would have said this. But now he's like freaking out. He's never seen anything like this in his life because it's never happened. These people have crossed the Rubicon over and over and over again. And it is like the blitzkrieg of the Democrat Party. I mean, they are just running roughshod over our rule of law and Constitution, and they're doing it fast. Like really fast. I mean, the partisan impeachments, okay, we've never seen anything like that before. Unprecedented, never happened. The spying on a campaign, that's kind of crazy. The using a fake dossier to get a FISA warrant to try and pushing a hoax, a Russia collusion hoax to try and overthrow a duly elected president, now you're pushing the buttons. It's like, wait a minute. So the Democrat Party, because they have power in one house, they're going to use their power to impeach a president on complete partisan basis? Like, that's never happened before. We're supposed to respect the impeachment process. The impeachment process is supposed to be used like a legitimate purpose to removing a president that may be a danger or a president that broke the law. But they used it for complete partisan purposes, for complete partisan reasons, just so they can come out and say, we impeached him. That is exactly when these people lost their minds. And then they impeached him again, a second time, which has never happened. And on this time, they did it within like 72 hours. That was crossing the Rubicon. So again, these people cross the Rubicon and break constitutional norms over and over and over again, like it's nothing. It's the Constitution is, I'm telling you folks, the Constitution is hanging on by a freaking thread. And it does not help that the opposition party, the Democrat Party, that Alan Dershowitz now calls the Stalinists, they are trying to pull that thing over the edge. They are trying to cut that thread and completely destroy it. These people do not like the Constitution. They wrap themselves up in it and use it as a weapon. They use the Constitution to destroy the Constitution. That's exactly what we're watching. And so look, it's without a doubt, it should be concerning to a lot of people. Without a doubt, concerning to a lot of people. I mean, people should be outraged. And I think Alan Dershowitz is exactly right. People should start calling Democrats, people that support this, like the left-wing media, anybody that supports what we're watching right now, need to be called fascists. Because what they're supporting is fascism and Stalinists. This is the same type of events that we seen in the Soviet Union. You can read about it. You can read about some of the same things that we're watching happen right now by the Democrat Party as far as weaponizing the justice system against political opponents, using RICO laws, trying to obliterate not just their political opponent, but every single person in their orbit. The Democrat Party is not trying to destroy Donald Trump. They're trying to destroy the whole damn movement. And so, I mean, these people have went straight Stalin, man. They have went straight Soviet Union on this country and this Constitution. And they're holding nothing back. Some of the things, the Barrera, Stalin's secret police chief, used the same tactics we're watching being used right now against Donald Trump. But instead of, and as far as due process, as far as indicting free speech, all of it, violating people's rights, just mowing over any rights that people may have. I mean, it's incredible. Except back in the day, Stalin and Barrera, if you would go to court, that same day you would be found guilty, and the next day you'd have a bullet put in your head. That's how they did it in the Soviet Union. But, I mean, are we really that far off here? I mean, think about it, folks. Tucker Carlson had to ask Donald Trump during that interview, which we're going to talk about on the next show. I'm going to do a show kind of discussing the highlights of the Tucker interview, the Tucker-Trump interview. He asked Donald Trump, like, I mean, they tried everything in the book. I mean, so what's next? Are they going to try and kill you now? And it was so crazy hearing that. It's like, my God, have we come this far? And what's even crazier, it's actually plausible. Like, you think about it, and it's, any other time, if somebody would have said that, I would have been like, no way. I would have thought it was hyperbole. I would have thought it was exaggeration. Tucker Carlson was not exaggerating, because I feel the same way, and I know a lot of you do too. Like, what's next? These people have tried every single thing in the book. And so what's next? I mean, listen, they're trying to throw Donald Trump in prison for like 700 or 800 years. Obviously, they want to send him to his death. But I don't think these people want to wait. I think these people want Donald Trump hanging from a tree. I think they want Donald Trump dead, hanging from a tree, man. Like, for everybody to see. These people have reached Stalinist level fascism here, man. We have reached, no doubt, totalitarianism. These people want mob rule. They want to be able to control the elections. They don't want democracy. They want to be able to pick by how much the mob supports. They want to be able to pick the president themselves. They don't want other people having a choice because those people may make the wrong decisions. So, yeah, that's all we're going to do. I actually thought this was going to be a lot shorter than what it was. But that's all we got for today's show. I got another show I'm doing right now. I'm going to be working on it. I'm going to release this one today, so I have a show going out Friday. Sorry I couldn't get it out to you this morning. It was pretty hectic last night. I couldn't finish editing. I couldn't finish the show. I was having some technical difficulties, and I just ran out of time. You know, that's what happens when I work. Trust me, folks, if I didn't have to work and all I had to do was make podcasts all day and make content, man, I would have so much content. You guys would be able to listen to the show would be amazing. Not only would it be amazing, but I'd be putting 3 or 4 shows out a day if I didn't have a normal job. But I'm just like you, man. I work every day. I work 8 hours a day, just like you. I'm going to hold off where I work at because people are crazy out there. But I will say it is a government entity. So I will, but I work just like you guys. So, but trust me, if I could stay home and just make content all day, we'd be off. We'd be off to the races because it's very time consuming. But trust me, I think about this stuff all day. I hear about it. I read about it. This is what I do. I live, eat, and breathe the news. And politics is just my forte at the moment because obviously we're going into election season. So, but I'm gonna start working on some more content. Maybe take some shorter shows, shorten them down a little bit so we can do some more. I don't know. I'm just going with the flow here, folks. I'm giving to you things that I think is important. And I feel like you'll, I don't know. The hell, I just went brain dead, man. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, so I was listening to Alan Dershowitz on my way home, and I was just like, wow, this guy just said everything that I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years. But I've been saying on the show since the show started that we're dealing with a mental illness. And Alan Dershowitz is right. These people, these judges, these legal scholars, we now have legal scholars willing to remove somebody from a ballot, willing to twist and contort the Constitution just to get their desired outcome. Think about that, folks. They want to be able to remove a leading candidate from the ballot in certain states by mere accusation. Like, do you know what our elections would look like? Just like Alan Dershowitz said, like, do you know what damage that would cause if different states could just remove people from the ballot by accusation, just by accusing somebody of treason or just accusing somebody of insurrection? I mean, good Lord, man, these people need to pull their head out of their ass. Because these people are absolutely, I mean, they are on a jihad against our Constitution, man, and our rule of law, our rights, everything. The fundamental foundational pillars of our country are being kicked over and over and over again by the Democrat Party and Republicans. Republicans that are blinded by hate for Donald Trump. These people prioritize their hate of Donald Trump over the love for their country. This is why we're watching the complete destruction of our Constitution, our rule of law, our democracy, everything. Everything. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be getting into the next show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on the next show. I'm going to be talking about, you know what, let's just do it right now. I was reading this article, and this just, when Alan Dershowitz said, like, this is the future of our country. Like, talking about, you know, destroying our democratic process. But the 2 people that wrote the op-ed about removing Donald Trump from the ballot by mere accusation using the 14th Amendment, Alan Dershowitz asks, like, these people know better. These people are not constitutional scholars. They are constitutional gigolos, is what he said. So essentially, they just use the Constitution to get their desired outcome. And so where does this type of mindset come from? And so I'm reading into this article from Epoch Times, and the title of it is Top Law Schools Promote Ditching the Constitution. So think tanks contend that a radicalization of attorney education threatens American freedom in a never-before-seen way. In almost every state, law students who pass their state bar examination, which allows them to practice law, take an oath to support the Constitution. But the country's top law schools teach future lawyers and judges the opposite. Many now teach that the U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of the nation since its ratification in 1788, is broken and needs to be scrapped. At least that's what two members of conservative think tanks believe after reviewing courses at the country's top 10 law schools as ranked by the U.S. News and World Report in 2022. And listen to some of these schools where they actually have professors teaching their young law students that the Constitution is outdated and needs to be scrapped. This, I think, is why we're experiencing what we're experiencing now. This is why these people have no shame at crumbling up the Constitution. They have no shame whoring out the Constitution and parting it out to get their desired outcomes. They're missing the point. Is because these people, I think, have been radicalized in their law schools. And so some of the top law schools of the country have professors that are teaching their young law students to scrap the Constitution. Universities like Yale, Stanford, Harvard, Columbia, University of Chicago, New York University, University of Pennsylvania, University of Virginia, University of California, Berkeley, Duke University. And there you go. I mean, look, these are the top law schools of our country, and these think tanks have determined that law professors at these colleges are teaching their law students, our future lawyers and judges and prosecutors and district attorneys, that the Constitution is outdated and needs to be scrapped. And in fact, it's not just these law professors. This is a common trend throughout the entire Democrat Party. Almost wholly. I guarantee you 95% of the Democrat Party, if you ask them, do you think the Constitution is out of date? They will say yes. Because that is how they consider it. They look at it as a document to get to their outcome, to get to their desired outcome. And so therefore, if they can't get the outcome that they desire, they think there's something wrong with the Constitution and not their desired outcome. You see what I'm saying? So in order for them to get their outcome, that means they have to change the Constitution. This is why these people consider the Constitution to be old and outdated. They should, instead of using the Constitution as a milestone, instead of using the Constitution as an anchor, the Constitution is the foundational document, the contract to this country. And so instead of changing it, just follow it. How about that? And so, like I said, this is a common theme by Democrats. They always think the Constitution is old, and outdated. You can see it every time you comment, every time you read their comments. They always, without actually saying it, that's what they believe. They think the Constitution is just a piece of paper that's old and outdated that needs to be scrapped. And in fact, now we know, because of these think tanks, that there's law professors at law schools teaching our future lawyers and judges, DAs, and prosecutors, teaching our future students that the Constitution needs to be scrapped. So this is why you're going to start seeing this get a lot worse. If these Democrats are not defeated in 2024, folks, I don't know what it's going to look like. And I've been saying this for a long time. Democrats don't need defeated in 2024. The whole damn party needs destroyed. It needs destroyed, dismantled, and just dissolved. The Democrat Party is a cancer on this country because of the radicalization and the ideas that it promotes. The only ideas it promotes is just progressivism. This is why progressivism is so dangerous. These people have progressed. They have progressed so much that they feel like they've progressed past the Constitution. They feel like they progressed past the fundamental basic rules of our country, and that they just need to progress into making their own damn country and their own set of rules and laws. And look, it's certainly not good. And something else that I read into, something else that I looked up. So I kind of dug into, guess where, and you would never believe it, where the district attorneys that are overseeing these cases, all the bullshit Trump indictments, you'll never guess what colleges they went to. You ready? Fannie Willis went to Howard University. Alvin Bragg went to Harvard University. And Lisa Monaco, who is really the brains of the Attorney General Merrick Garland. It's Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco. She is behind all of these indictments. Trust me, folks, she is. Guess where she went to law school? Harvard University. So again, folks, it's these universities that are warping these kids' minds. They are teaching these young kids, these young judges and district attorneys and attorney generals that the Constitution is old and outdated and needs to be scrapped. And now we're watching the culmination of years and years and years of that type of mentality towards our Constitution. So this is exactly what you get. This is the result of law professors teaching their young law students to essentially hate the Constitution, to disrespect it, to disregard it, because it's old and outdated. Look, that's exactly what we're watching right now. How you fix it, I have no idea. I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is you have to destroy the Democrat Party to where it's people just reject everything about it. But they can't, because the Democrat Party is sneaky. They're very manipulative. They use language tactics. Listen, there is no reason why the Democrat Party should have been around this long. I'm telling you, they've always been like this. Always. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for this show. I'm getting ready to hop onto another show, get you some more content. I'm going to be releasing this show today. I'm going to have another show tomorrow. And I'm going to try and do something cool for Sunday. Maybe do a quick little show, an update on a top story or something. We got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about the Donald Trump Tucker interview. I pulled some audio of some key points that I think were pretty interesting and insightful, and they're not the typical audio clips you've probably heard already. I found some little nuggets that I thought were pretty interesting, and I have some I got some thoughts on those audio clips that maybe you just might not have heard yet from other people. So very important interview, very insightful, and look, it's got over, I think it's close to 300 million views now. That's insane. Insane. Last I checked, it was at 255. So I don't know how many it's got now, because that was yesterday, or that was this morning. So I have no idea. But you're talking about well over 2/3 of the country watched that interview. I think it was a great interview. Both did very well. And so we're going to be talking about that in the next episode. And we're going to be talking about some other things too. I just want to hit on those audio clips and talk about those for a minute. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, please share and follow the show. Share the show with your friends and family. Get the show out there. We got to beat the algorithm. If you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at StevenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Let me know what you thought about the Trump Tucker interview. Obviously you probably watched it by now. You can't be one of the 70 million that hasn't. But let me know what you thought about it. And, yeah, because I want to know. Also, let me know what you think about Alan Dershowitz. Is he right? Is he wrong? Let me know. If you want to just get a hold of me, you want to send me some articles to look at, you want me to look into something, or you just want to shoot the shit, just let me know. Send me an email, StevenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. And, yeah, so as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.